What's going on, gamers? Kadizi here. And pretty much after I put out that last hardcore video where I did that 75-hour thoughts and feelings on the hardcore official rule set PTR and, what I thought Blizzard could do better, namely a solo self-found mode. Blizzard put out an interview, I think it was like pretty much the next day, or maybe like several hours later. I got comments saying, hey, you got your wishes, because Blizzard just put a video out saying, hey, self-found mode is coming. And this is pretty much similar in line to what Agrin was saying on Twitter, I guess a week prior, to people who would ask, even to myself, that a self-found would come after launch, right? And Savix had an interview after that where he asked about a solo self-found mode, right? And the devs said, again, hey, a self-found mode may be coming, or it's in the works post-launch, right? Pretty much we're getting enough details and confirmations. I'm not going to call them promises. I'm not a child. But pretty much like it's all but confirmed, right? Is the best way to put it, right? So here's the first interview that put out, and listen to the way that the devs kind of word their language.
That desire for a self-found option, we've heard it loud and clear. And there's even members on the team that would want to play with that option enabled. So what we've looked into is, not for launch, but sometime after launch, enabling an option for players to choose from that allows them to play without being able to trade, use the auction house, or use mail. So a self-found option. Not much more to discuss on that for today, but something that we're really looking into.
Yeah.
And then this is the Savix interview when solo self-found is asked about.
Or a way to play that way. That is something we have heard loud and clear over the course of the PTR. And so what we are looking at adding is a self-found option, which when players create their character or shortly after, they would be able to enable something that no longer allows them to use the auction house, use mail, or trade, and progress through the entirety of their journey with that option enabled.
I think people will be really happy to hear about that, yeah.
And then I'm going to show right here, here's the tweet from Agrend when I asked about the same thing. And this is in response to me asking if we could see a SSF mode specifically, maybe after launch, and he says yes. That's something that the team is considering, right? But notice the language, very specific with self-found. And I started thinking like Columbo, right? And I don't know if any of you Zoomers who watch this channel, no, I'm joking, you guys are like all 30 to 48 years old. But part of me was like, I should be satisfied with everything I've heard, right? And, I'll get to where, my happiness level with all this news, right? But I had a Columbo moment where I was like, hey, and one last thing.
Oh, listen, there's one other thing I wanted to ask you about.
And I shot a tweet out to Agrand, and your boy got a Blizzard Q&A because this dude went off, right? He had like a freaking 18-tweet thread pretty much answering my question, and my question was, hey, the team's been really specific around the language whenever they're asked about SSF, and then they say, hey, a self-found mode's coming. Is there a reason for that language where they're just dropping the solo? Like, or are they just trying to be brief with their answers? And it turns out, no, it's very specific language. So let's dive into the answer I received from my Blizzard Q&A, very official. This is a very long answer that needs multiple tweets. So I'm going to answer, I'm going to quote and answer in a thread, which is the most exciting thing you can hear if you ask Blizzard a question. And I'm just going to, small aside, Gren's the best, dude. He's very open and communicative with the community. He always has been, up, like even before this point. He's great. So let's get into it, right? So the very first tweet, 1 of 14. Short answer, yes. Self-found is something we are looking at. Solo self-found is not. Long answer, solo has many design challenges and many more logistical challenges that we are concerned would result in a very clunky and unsatisfying experience. When looking at the unofficial challenge, solo is not and has never actually been truly solo. It's a weird hybrid honor system solo, and the reason why the add-on authors didn't restrict grouping altogether is because of the many edge cases you have to account for. Generally, our conversations about solo versus grouping start with someone saying, yeah, I want solo, that's best in slot. And when someone says, oh, we'll just disable grouping completely, sounds easy, the response is, oh no, I want to do dungeons, of course. So there's caveats to solo, and those caveats don't have easy fixes. Players still want to group for some things, and grouping for those things is accepted and normal, even unofficial. When discussing this internally, I refer to these caveats as whatabouts. What about grouping for dungeons? What about grouping to clear elites to reach the instance? What about grouping at level 60? What about grouping into the dungeon even if you aren't grouped yet? And these are much more difficult what about questions than these. And most of these answers to these questions create more design and user experience questions that themselves need great answers. Pretty soon, you find you need fundamental redesign of how WoW works to a core to engineer to support solo, but with caveats. At the most basic level, preventing grouping is easy. Preventing grouping until 60 is easy. However, as highlighted above, I don't think anyone who's asking for solo is asking for no grouping at all, or no grouping at all before 60. No version of this that we've come up with results in a satisfying or intuitive experience, and we feel that if we can't do solo right, we shouldn't do it at all. Plus, as custodians of World of Warcraft Classic, the idea of outright prevent grouping and engineering that into a self-found mode as a hard restriction feels pretty antithetical to what WoW is. WoW is an MMO and you play with other people, you group with other people, you overcome challenges with other people. If you don't want to group, that's cool. And the solo rules that the unofficial uses are sufficient in our eyes for this. I know someone will read this and decry this as lazy, but it's really not. Lazy would be putting something suboptimal to accommodate this part of this SSF ask. And folks might not have fully considered the logistics of. You've actually spent a lot of dev time looking at this, and no version of this is in any way satisfying or a good experience from a pure mechanical gameplay perspective, without a time-prohibitive investment. True solo WoW just isn't really compatible with Classic, and we think most people playing WoW know that. You have to group for some things, and it's inevitable. Opting into restrict trading seems totally reasonable, and the game is playable and fun this way. But having to wrestle with esoteric conditional grouping restrictions to try to and reach a dungeon zone in before you can group up just feels bad, like bad gameplay. To say nothing of waiting in a 20-person line to kill a named mob with a long respawn. This will disappoint some folks, and I understand why. Some fixate on the idea just because something's possible means it will be abused. This still feels preferable to leave in as a true individual choice rather than thrusting a clunky UX onto all SSF players. The personal nature of the item gold inventory economy feels like the main character of SSF. Having clunky solo portion feels much less critical to that experience. Hope this kind of explains the thought process. I'm sure we'll talk about and dig into this again. And I gotta say, man, Agren's the GOAT. Literally a round of applause, you know, the rock meme or whatever where he's clapping. That's completely satisfying to hear as an answer. And obviously, they can go about this any way they choose, but just explaining in that level of detail, and he makes a lot of good points, right? There's a lot of blind spots you have as someone who loves hardcore, right? And some people in the comments have even pointed this out, right? Like, you know, there's a lot of times there's a very active area on Bloodsail, right? And it feels like you're grouping with other people because there's 5 people doing the same quest, right? There's a lot of moments where it's not truly hardcore, and there's moments where, you know, you want grouping with caveats. It creates more design issues for them that, you know, we're players, we're not game designers, right? Sometimes we just have to sit the fuck back and let them do their thing. We got to try it out, right? That's sort of what has, I don't want to say it's killed WoW over time, but if you're someone who appreciates vanilla, one thing that most people who appreciate vanilla can say is that a lot of, I don't want to say quality of life, but just death by 1,000 cuts, players trying to have the devs add too many things that kind of just maybe create more issues down the road, right? And I'll say, I'm just happy they satisfied the self-found aspect, right? They mentioned that the trading and stuff feels like the main character, and I totally agree with that. As far as grouping, probably less so. I mean, you want to do those dungeons. There's going to be a lot of times you're going to be leveling late at night, and you're going to be the only person on a quest, right? Depending on, you know, how active the servers are for how long. There will be moments where you're going to have to be solo and hardcore, you know, maybe against your choice. There's definitely a lot of moments on the PTR where I was doing solo quests, right? And that was pretty much just against my choice. So I just want to say, yeah, I'm happy with this, dude. As long as they follow through the promise, they're if you see when when I was initially asking Gren and he said, hey, it might come after, that was August 1st. So we've pretty much gotten 2 confirmations this week or soft confirmations, I'll call them, where a self-found mode is coming, right? We heard murmurs at the beginning of the month in August 1st, right, when I was asking, and now it's more likely, and I'm happy about that, right? We got the hardcore servers, One Life, and we have a mode where we can restrict trading. And the main thing around the restricting trading, I've always said this, it's not about dictating how people play. It's just a good deterrent. It's a good motivator for people to try that mode, right? And they'll get a reward if they don't screw around with an auction house that's eventually going to be laced with a lot of gold buying bots, things like that, right? We have fly hacking. There are going to be fly hacking bots that potentially just won't die. Well, we're going to see some crazy stuff, I expect, but I'm excited for launch. I'm going to make a video about what I'm planning for launch, but overall, I'm really happy with Blizzard and their communication. Dude, they're awesome, right? I think from now on, we can just put the game in their hands and trust that they're going to do the right thing, right by the community. And, it's unexpected. They're pretty much nailing this the right way, and there's a lot of obstacles that they have to navigate, and just explaining the design decisions in such an in-depth thread. I mean, it's amazing, right? How often do we get like something like this? I remember back in the day, Ghostcrawler would kind of do like a 1-sentence explanation, and then eventually he gets sick of the community. Gren really just replies to everyone, and he kind of breaks stuff down, and it's pretty cool to see. I'm happy that this is the dev team behind Hardcore, so it's pretty cool. So yeah, I'm pretty happy, dude. I mean, the last video was a doomer. The last like 3 videos I've done a Hardcore on this channel have been me dooming about this, right? And now it's like, oh shit's gonna be awesome, right? It's gonna be cool. I'm so excited. That's all I got. I hope you enjoyed my Blizzard Q&A. What you guys should do is leave a comment on what your thoughts on the official self-found mode pretty much being all but confirmed. Let's just start saying that they promised it, so they have more pressure on them. Leave a comment what you think about that. I mean, we got our way, dude. Soul self-found knights stand down. Let me know how satisfied you are in the comments. Subscribe. I'm gonna put out a video for my absolute batshit insane hardcore plans for hardcore launch. I'm gonna be taking a few days off work. I'm gonna have 2 accounts set up. It's gonna be freaking crazy. I'm gonna go absolutely insane. Probably not a good thing, but we're hitting 60 fast. So subscribe for that. I'm on Twitch, all that. Thank you, Gren. Thank you, Blizzard. That's all I got. That's all it took to make me happy.